My name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about some really important tools you can use to assist you along your journey in reprogramming CPTSD. So first and foremost, before I dive into this, I do want to put a disclaimer that says, if you feel like you have CPTSD or you resonate with different parts of the series, the symptoms, I do highly recommend you work with a professional. But what I'm going to provide for you in this video is a set of key tools that you can use that will help assist you in that journey or to strike up conversations you can have while working with that professional. So let's dive right in. Please know as well, we are still doing our sale to support our community. Coupon code is with you for 25% off the 3, 6, or 12-month membership bundles with all the additional features that we have added. So when we talk about CPTSD, if you haven't already, please make sure you check out the earlier part of this series. Like, what is it? What are the symptoms? What are the root causes? We talk about the ACEs survey. You can sort of take a little look at all of those different components and get a nice little view overall of what CPTSD is and what it's all about. But some of the major things that happen when people have CPTSD is we have a lot of minds in our mind field, as I talk about, aka a lot of traumatic imprints that make us give meaning to ourselves and to the world. So if we have a painful event with a caregiver in childhood, we might go, geez, if I can't trust them, I can't trust anybody. And therein lies the meaning we gave to the event. I can't trust anybody. And we carry that out. And this is how trauma really residually A, builds up, and B, impacts us throughout the course of our lives. Because we have to ask ourselves, how did something that happened 40 years ago, 15 years ago, happen? How is it still affecting me right now? Well, because the program and the meaning that took place as a result of it are still alive and are still a part of the world that the way you perceptually view the world. And so one of the first things we have to do when we're wanting to reprogram CPTSD is understand all the meaning we gave to painful events. And some people will say, well, what if I don't remember all the painful events? That's okay. Notice the types of meaning you give to painful events today. Like, what are the personalizations or the core wounds you have? Do you have a lot of, I am helpless showing up? I am trapped. I am unheard. I am unseen. I am unloved. I am unworthy. I am not enough in some form. I am disrespected. I am stupid, which I don't like using that word, but it's a core wound that a lot of people will have that's very painful at the end of the sort of bottom rung of the ladder of meaning they'll give to things. I am unsafe. People cannot be trusted. I will be betrayed. I am rejected. Like, these are a lot of the core wounds you'll see. And so we can notice, like, what are these painful meanings we give to things, and we have to start working to heal that relationship to ourselves by equilibrating and reprogramming these core wounds specifically. Okay. And I heard a quote recently. I think somebody posted it in the Facebook group, and it's a really beautiful quote. It's sad, but it's profound. And it says, when kids are abused or go through abusive circumstances, they don't stop loving their caregiver, they stop loving themselves. And in more severe cases of CPTSD, this is very true. And what I often see when people are struggling with CPTSD and wanting to work through it is there is a very strong lack of awareness, in a way, in how to love oneself. Like, there's a complete absence of self-care, of taking oneself into consideration, of showing up in the relationship to self, of having boundaries to protect oneself. And that's largely because there wasn't the proper care shown or demonstrated, especially in the more severe cases of CPTSD, by the caregiver modeling, because a lot of caregivers who are in a place where they're maybe potentially creating patterns of CPTSD in the child, a lot of those caregivers don't have their own healthy self-care, and a lot of them are really in quite a bit of trauma. Or what you can see is that there's just not care and proper self-care habits and rituals taught to the child. And when we combine that with painful imprints like I'm unloved, or I'm unlovable, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I have to work through life to earn my worth to stay safe, a lot of these like types of mentalities or thought processes that or quite familiar to somebody who goes through CPTSD, what we'll often see is that equates to somebody having no concept of proper self-care. And this is a really important thing to learn. Okay. So, thing number one, find the minds in your mind field. What are they? And the way you can discover them is, what are the things that trigger me most? And like when I'm really triggered and upset, what is the meaning I give to events? So, for example, if you feel triggered by being taken advantage of, you feel like somebody violates a boundary of yours or tries to take too much from you, what do you make that mean? Okay, so what's like the meaning you give to that? Do you make that mean I'm unsafe? Do you make that mean I'm unloved because people just want to take from me? And do you make that mean that it's an injustice, like I can't speak up, or I'm unseen, I'm unheard, nobody cares about me? Like, what are the pieces of meaning? And what you'll notice is the events that tend to trigger you, there will be patterns in there. You tend to have the same core pieces of meaning that come up the most. And from that, you'll be able to go, okay, these are the things I need to reprogram. And I've got a lot of videos on like subconscious reprogramming in the, obviously in the school, but also on this channel. And I'm going to just stay on track and not go all over the place with all these different things you can do, because I want it to be nice and succinct and clear for you guys. So, number one, find the meaning, do the reprogramming work on the meaning. I cannot stress how important this is. This is really, when we look at like how trauma is affecting us all this time ago, it's because we didn't reprogram the meaning yet. Okay. Number two, meet the needs that were unmet. We keep ourselves in a state of re-traumatization on autopilot without meaning to, when we have profoundly unmet needs and we continue to not meet them in the relationship to ourselves. Example, somebody's emotionally neglected as a child, and in their adult lives, they're still emotionally neglecting themselves to a severe degree. Okay. So, how do we change that? How do we heal from that? We heal from the past by healing whatever the past imprinted with in the present, imprinted us with in the present. Okay. Was emotionally neglected. I have to do the work and understand how to stop neglecting my own emotions, how to show up for my emotions, have a relationship to my emotions, realize that my emotions are just feedback mechanisms and they're letting me know when something is out of alignment within me and they're giving me guidance, and let me establish that relationship. Let me start to feel again. And suddenly I'm actually undoing the traumatic imprints from the past, which is how we heal. Okay. I hope that's really clear. Number three, um, when I talked earlier about the output of there being a total lack of self-care, part of healing from CPTSD is learning how to properly self-care. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the ability to downregulate. This is often an unfamiliar thing with individuals who are going through this. So, what does self-care mean? And a lot of people who are probably listening to this, if they do struggle with CPTSD or even think like they're close or they have some symptoms that overlap, self-care can be a very weird thing. It can be like kind of a confusing foreign concept. And it's like, do I take a bubble bath? Like, what do I do? And self-care really means a few key things. It means learning to make time for yourself, to check in with yourself and see what you need, and then act on those needs. So if you have habits to check in with yourself and go, oh, how am I feeling? Oh, I need time for myself a little bit. I need to just veg this evening instead of going to commit to the plans that I have. Or I need time to regulate my emotions or journal or things like this. Whatever you need, you have to have an ability to check in with yourself and then act on those needs. Okay. And then, of course, we have like high level self care things like, what food am I putting into my body? Am I taking bubble baths and taking care of my hygiene? Am I taking care of, the different areas of my life in terms of like having a direction for my career, taking care of my budget, my money, all the 7 areas of life. Those can all be components of self-care, but really like the epitome and root level of what self-care is, do I take myself into consideration? Do I see my needs? Do I act on them? Do I make space for myself in my life? Okay. The example I often give of people who are going through a lot of trauma is like, when trauma happens, especially when you think of trauma with a child, it's already an injustice. Okay. It doesn't mean that people who accidentally or purposefully enacted the trauma are these bad, evil people. Of course, there can be things that are really, really not good. But a lot of the time, trauma is just passed down by accident because it's the hurt people thing, right? And so, what is not okay is if you go through trauma as a child and then we keep living through that all of our adult lives. And what we have to do and what we owe in the relationship to ourselves to do as human beings is to go find any single little weed that a person planted in our subconscious mind and go pluck it out at the root. And what that means is every weed, every time there was a painful event and I gave it meaning and I made that person's trauma define who I am. Okay. So let's say a parent or a caregiver in a foster home, whatever it might be, let's say that person did something really unhealthy to you. The fact that we allow that to define our worth and our identity in our adult lives is an extra injustice. And we have to be able to go, what did I make that mean? Did I make that painful event mean that I'm unlovable? And if so, what an injustice that a child would take that on and believe that. And I owe it to myself and to my inner child to a certain degree to go in there, be clear about what those things are, and pluck all those weeds out by doing that reprogramming work. So I just wanted to say that for a moment. Okay, so we have reprogramming the meaning we give to things. We have, and that means about myself or the world. I can't trust humans. Relationships are unsafe. I can't do a relationship. It's too hard. All the painful meaning and stories we have, okay? Meeting our unmet needs, developing proper self-care, developing boundaries. One of the major things we will see is whenever anybody goes through persistent or consistent pervasive trauma, there's usually a very strong correlation between that person going through what they went through and then not having boundaries, because usually we had to break our own boundaries to some degree and in some way in order to stay safe. It could be that if you set a boundary, you were punished. So you equate at a subconscious level, boundaries equal I become unsafe. It could be that you, when you do set a boundary, you get a withdrawal, a lack of love, and you go, boundaries make me unloved, and then I'm at risk for abandonment, which also makes me unsafe. It could be that you couldn't afford to have boundaries because maybe you were caretaking your alcoholic parent, or whoever it might be. You were caretaking and you needed them to be okay and survive for you to feel okay and safe. And so you keep caretaking, and your boundarylessness might even be rewarded. Okay. It could be that you get love when you're boundaryless. So all of these things can be at play, and it's important to recognize them. What do we do to heal that? We learn to develop our own boundaries. I have a really in-depth course inside the school about boundaries, about the different types of boundaries. I have other videos on this channel about different types of boundaries, a boundary identification process, like how to set them, exposure response work to reprogram your relationship so that you can start to have boundaries, which really means like starting to set boundaries over time and reprogramming that it's okay and it's safe. There's so much to say about that, but feel free to check out other videos on the channel about that, or to do a deep dive in the course about that. The next one we have here is emotional literacy. And this is a really important concept when it comes to healing. And it's actually important not just for people with CPTSD, but for healing any major challenges we go through. When we learn to put our feelings into words, when we learn to describe what our boundaries are, when we learn to understand ourselves, that emotional literacy starts in the relationship to self. And you can think of when somebody develops emotional literacy, it's like they build out a relationship to themselves. They go, oh, this is what I need. Oh, this is what I feel. Oh, this is my boundary. And when we have that awareness within ourselves, it equips us with all the appropriate tools to then go out into the world and to heal, and to be able to apply these tools and practice and have more thriving and functional relationships and interactions with other people. So that emotional literacy also, and an interesting thing that you'll see is that it provides a sense of relief. Like when we are able to say, oh, this is how I feel and this is why, and we understand, not only is that deep self-awareness and understanding within ourselves relieving, but also the mind naturally feels relieved when it has context for things. You'll notice people with anxiety, like part of the biggest struggles with anxiety for individuals is, oh, I'm anxious and I don't know why. It scares me that I don't know why. It feels so unpredictable. And then people get anxious about being anxious and anxious about having an anxiety attack. And emotional literacy is like, imagine you have context and you can pinpoint all the reasons why you have anxiety and you put cause and effect together. That provides a huge breakthrough in terms of healing. Needs. Expressing your own needs, learning to advocate for your own needs, learning to communicate what your needs are, learning to meet your own needs. I think I might have said that already. And learning to express your needs to others and advocate for them. I think I just like totally repeated myself. This is this has been a long video. But I'll give you the quadrants. Okay. Number 1, learning to identify my own needs. Number 2, learning to express my own needs. Number 3, learning to meet my own needs. And number 4, learning to receive my needs being met. Okay, so a lot of people can get really good, and 2 and 3 aren't in a particular order there, but a lot of people can be really good at, they can do the healing work and get on, start doing a really good job. And they're like, I know my needs now. I'm meeting them myself and I'm getting good at that. And I'm expressing them to other people. But then if you look closely, they're not allowing themselves to receive. And this is very common for people with CPTSD because there's a lot of, I am worthy, I deserve to receive. I deserve to be loved for who I am, not what I do. A lot of that reprogramming needs to happen first. So if you find that you're blocked on receiving your needs being met, or you think it's unsafe, or you're going to be a burden, you have to go back to the drawing board and reprogram those stories. Okay. And then the ability to take yourself into consideration when you make decisions. The ability, like we were talking about earlier, to tune in with yourself, check in. Where am I at? Somebody's asking me to go do something with them on Friday. How do I feel about that? Do I want to? Am I tired? Do I need time to myself? Is there something else I would rather be doing? And we have to be able to like tune in, check in with ourselves, extremely important. And last but not least, you're going to have to learn how to downregulate. And this means if you're still going and you're still on, the switch is on at 10 or 11 p.m., you have to consciously learn how to relax. And part of that is a practice and doing relaxing activities in a practiced way, so that over time, the repetition of being exposed to relaxing actually allows us to downregulate our nervous system and get into parasympathetic nervous system mode. And even if we're loving what we're doing, or we're, feeling great at 10 or 11 p.m., if we are not learning to shut off effectively, and if we don't have a practice where we get into rest mode, then living like that, being really on, which is very common for a lot of people working on Wall Street or in very, very intensive corporate jobs, things like that. If we're not learning how to rest, to just be, to just breathe, to read, to have everything shut off, to not feel like you have to be somewhere or doing something. If we're not good at that, then we're going to have to ingrain that so our nervous system can be familiar and more functionally and easily get into that mode. So I hope this makes a lot of sense. These are all very important reprogramming tools for healing CPTSD. I've personally gone through all of these and healed myself. And I've worked with a lot of people on this. And this is not me saying, and the reason I kind of like hesitate as I'm saying this is not me saying you can just do this work here and that's it. I really do advise that, if you find yourself in this position, you do seek out help. I was already in school going through a whole bunch of different learning and in-depth programs and degrees when I was healing myself. So this isn't me saying everybody else can do that too. Like, get the proper help, the proper support, but these are going to be really important, almost non-negotiable parts of your healing journey, these things. So if you feel like this is you, write them down, get on them. Let me know if you have questions in the comments below. Thank you so much for being here, for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.